Now that everyone 16 and older is eligible for the vaccine, there are still a lot of questions out there.
Dr. Laura Saunders from the Institute of Living is here now with some myths and facts. Welcome, doctor.
Happy day, everyone.
Happy day is right. Wow, on the first day of the rollout, 100,000 people signed up to get that vaccine. Pretty impressive.
That is exciting. We need to get people to get this vaccine so we can create that herd immunity. And I talked about that last week. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the myths that are out there, because there's a good amount of myths. We need to debunk the myths, educate people so their fear goes down and they're more likely to get the vaccine. Myth one, vaccines can make you sick. And for the most part, vaccines don't make you sick. You might have mild side effects, sore arm, fatigue, fever. We know that when kids get vaccines, they have some side effects, but that's very different. That's your immune system kicking in. Myth two, the COVID vaccine can affect a woman's fertility. Now, that was going around social media. It is absolutely unequivocally false. The COVID vaccine does not affect a woman's fertility. Funny story, though. I had a niece reach out to me when she found out I was getting the vaccine and said, she heard it cause fertility, and I said, that ship has sailed, no need to worry. However,
no, but it's a real concern. It's a real concern, especially as parents are trying to talk about, do I vaccinate my 16-year-old now that that's available? And so there was that going on the internet, and you're saying it absolutely was debunked.
It is absolutely
false information.
False. Right. So I mean, I don't even want to go into there's microbiological details as to why it's false. That's really not appropriate for this. You can look it up. There's a lot of good information out there. I looked at a Johns Hopkins site. I've looked at Harvard Healthcare site, the CDC sites. They can debunk these myths as well. So it is absolutely false that it affects a woman's fertility.
Okay.
Another myth: if you've already had COVID, you don't need the vaccine. Now, while we know that you have antibodies for some period of time, we're thinking 3 months. I've heard case reports of 6 months or 8 months or 9 months. However, you can still benefit from getting the COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine does not contain live virus. I know that is also another myth. It does not contain live virus. It's an mRNA, so it's a messenger RNA vaccine. So it does not contain live virus. That's different. When you've had COVID, you get the antibodies to COVID, but the mRNA vaccine different.
Yeah, as someone who had COVID, and I know all of my medical team recommended that I still get it. I was in my immunity period. They're like, you don't have to worry that you're not eligible yet. But I recently got it, even though my window just ended. I did have some mild reaction, but they say that the antibodies and obviously the immune response you get from the vaccine is more guaranteed, more thorough. We don't know how much you make, especially if you had a mild case of COVID.
Right. So actually, that brings up another myth. I could do 10 myths today. Another myth, Kara, is that if you've had COVID, you're going to have a worse immune response to the vaccine. I don't know that that's necessarily true. There's a lot of anecdotal. I mean, there's a number of people who have a reaction to the second dose. It's an immune system response. It's fatigue, fever, soreness in your arm. But that's an immune system response. I don't know that there's any evidence that if you had COVID, that you have a much more serious response to the vaccines. That also might be a lot of anecdote and hearsay.
And a lot of people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Go ahead, Scott.
A lot of people are saying, oh my gosh, this vaccine's only been out for like so many months. But in actuality, these vaccines have been in the works for years.
Absolutely. So this was something that actually I too thought of in the summer. I'm like, I think this vaccine is going to be rushed. So what I did, which is what I encourage everyone to do, is I did the research. I looked up the sites. I sought out information. And in fact, a lot of the parts of vaccine creation have been in development for years and years. Moderna and Pfizer have been creating the elements to a vaccine for years. The vaccine's developers did not skip any testing steps, but what they did is they conducted them on an overlapping schedule. And another difference is very often vaccine makers have to raise money, but the government was invested in this and invested in making a quicker process. So raising money was not an issue. And another huge issue, so sometimes I rail against social media, but social media actually helped get volunteers for these studies. So I actually have a friend out in Tucson who was a volunteer for the Moderna study. So getting volunteers quickly, and because it was it's a virus that spreads quickly, they could see whether or not it helped you or not. So there was elements of it that were of social media that actually helped get the volunteers, because we needed upwards of 70 to 80,000 volunteers to even get the trials underway.
All right.
Dr. Laura Saunders, thank you so much, as always, for your wisdom and encouraging people also to be their own best advocate, especially now that the state, just to put it out there, you can go on their Channel 3 app, all the information, how to get the vaccine. It is now open to 16 and up. So thank you for being with us.
Yep, get vaccinated. It's good for you and for all of us.
All right. Happy day, doctor. Thanks for being with us.